Hello.
Good evening, Graham. I'm overhearing your discussions
Hello,
on
Charles.
the hippest moment of the tournament so far that led to nothing for Scotland. And good evening,
Mm.
Anthony, as well. Good evening. Hello. Graham, let's go in with, I think, perhaps first obvious topic for today is the upcoming season for festivals. And I say this because suddenly we've been basking and bathing in the glory of sunshine, which has greeted the return of Dolby Forest, Forest Live for Forestry England, which I went to last night, which we won't discuss, but just to say that it's kind of put the mood in there for enjoying the festival season. Richard Ashcroft last night, 10 songs only, but 10 really good songs,
Oh, wait
which,
a minute.
which
Is it?
might be a
Yeah,
way,
yeah.
which
I could
might be a
tell
way
there's
to
a
do
little
set,
verb.
actually.
I could tell there's a little verb in your voice. I could tell there's a little verb in your voice for the way
Well,
you talk
I mean,
about Richard
they,
Ashcroft.
it has to be said that Forestry England and the Forest Live arm of it run events really, really well. So you get away, no problems at all afterwards. You know, it's all really, really well organised. The staff are delightful from start to finish. Always the
Yeah.
clean-up campaign that goes on throughout. They're always doing all that. It's just admirably run in the way you would expect with something that's concerned with conservation and forests, and it's just such a beautiful setting. So anyway, that's put me in the mood for the festival season ahead. And we've got two major events coming up, of course, as ever. Which Leeds Festival, traditionally the last festival of the summer for the post-exam results season, and then more immediately, and we're hoping to interview the new Deershed director as well, Deershed Festival, which is coming up soon. Of course, it's also the end of the Underneath the Stars Festival, Graham. You may have noticed the festival run by Kate Rosby's family for 10 years now, and this is going to be the last one this year, which we might reflect on actually sort of nearer the time that happens and the contribution that festival has made in Yorkshire. But let's go big first of all on Deer. Yeah, let's look at
Yeah, it's been going
the
for about
season ahead,
15
Graham.
years. Music and Arts Festival in the north of England.
Yeah,
Possibly only Latitude nationally rivals it for being exceedingly nice, exceedingly well run, exceedingly family oriented, and also fantastic lineups. It's always got interesting lineups. It doesn't give you the obvious the whole time, so
no.
it's worth going to every single year. And this year they've got the Coral and Bombay Bicycle Club, CMAT, the Go Team, King Creosote, Fat Dog. You know, they go from like the almost the top of the tree down to the newcomers that you've only heard recently on BBC Music, and it's always brilliantly created. And for July 29th.
Do you know what the theme is this year, Graham?
I've never liked themes, so I know they do have themes. What the theme is, I don't know, because at the end of the day, you don't say afterwards that was a great festival.
That was a great festival.
Or that was a great company. Look at that mission statement. Wow. So I don't know and I don't care. I'm sure it'll be good whatever it is because the Deershed
that's a fair point,
good.
Graham. I mean, I like to think that they take great care over choosing the theme each year, and the programming reflects that. But I get the point. You're much more. You're not a vibes. You're not a vibes fan.
Well, no, you experience what you experience, and what you call it is irrelevant. It's relevant in the build-up because you're selling the show. But when you're there, no amount of selling gets away from the reality of what you're experiencing, which is what really matters.
You're right, because no one's going to say I really, that theme really made a difference to my enjoying it this year. You're right. That's not going to turn up in any conversation.
Well, yeah. If you got a Foo Fighters gig and in advance to bill it as a reggae special, it's not going to make the event any better.
It's not,
especially since he doesn't really play reggae.
So now, what are the dates of that festival, Graham? I'm putting you on the spot
again. July the 26th to the 29th.
Splendid. And as I say, we are hoping to interview the new director, and we'll update you on all that. But that would be wonderful if we could do that. It's still in the. It should be made clear that it's not that the family that's long run it is not involved anymore. Just that from a point of view of actually programming it, it's been spread out a little bit. So the second of the big ones really to look forward to is Leeds Festival, and these are only brief previews because we're going to come to the main topics of the night. So Leeds Festival, as ever, end of the season. Some pretty big names are lining up for that, of course, already, as ever. So I think, is it Lana Del Rey playing? Is that right? Liam Gallagher's playing?
Yeah. Well, yeah, the great thing about Leeds Festival is it's evolved over the years, and it's been going now for 25 years, just about. And it's got a lot more R&B, a lot more rap, a lot more soul, a lot more dance, a lot more sort of modern pop-oriented stuff than it used to have when it started off in the late 90s. But they still retain the roots because they've got the Prodigy.
Yeah.
Who are like a Leeds Festival favourite. They always go down well.
Yeah.
They've got Blink 182. They must have played quite a few times. They got Liam Gallagher, you know, another favourite. Lana Del Rey, who obviously I'm looking forward to seeing. Fontaine's DC, Last Dinner Party. But they've also still, like, without leaving behind what they were about 25 years ago, they always update it, which is part of the reason it's always successful.
I mean, that's an important thing to do, isn't it? You know, I'm not saying you shouldn't have a heavy rock festival still, but of course we now know, you know, there are other festivals that more specifically concentrate on that, but there's traditionally a stronger day than others still at Leeds Festival and at Reading Festival that focuses on rock, and that's still at Bramham, of course, Graham, same venue as in
lovely Bramham Park. I think the thing about Leeds Festival is that when it started off, when we went every year as well, then it was like percentage-wise probably 90% guitar bands. And now there's probably 30% guitar bands.
And that's partly, again, it's also, Graham, because it's spread out across, of course, more stages. The more it develops, there are more stages that it has, and that obviously gives a potential to widen the music that is presented there. And indeed, there's comedy as well, of course, as part of that. As indeed, actually, of course, at Deershire, comedy plays its part, and so does science. That has an involvement, and a lot of children's activities as well there. You know.
So what was great about Deershire last year was that Steve Davis's band played. The former snooker world champion Steve Davis has his own sort of weird krautrock band. So that was quite hilarious watching him playing it in such a cool, if not young band, and they were very
yeah. So Graham, we'll sort of return to those events nearer the time, but I think you're right, you know, to draw attention to what's coming up this Yorkshire summer, on top of everything at the Peace Hall at Halifax, everything at the Scarborough Open Air Theatre, the upcoming Future Sounds Festival, 4 days of music in York. Loads going on in Yorkshire this summer. It's a really, really busy summer. True. And I think that's good. I think that's really good to see that is the case, you know.
And Leeds Festival is on from August the 21st to August 25th.
Yeah, and there is, I think there's an event taking place right about now in Leeds as well. The Live at Leeds, is that going on at the moment? Am I right?
Millennium Square is a series of live concerts throughout the summer, which is a great place to have live concerts. And amongst that is Yard Act playing early August. There's loads of bands playing.
Yeah, that's right. Yard Act playing Millennium Square is a sign of just how far that band's progressed. But Graham, the joyful news is that you've had a particularly busy time and an enjoyable time with those that you have been meeting, including no less the leader of the Liberal Democratic Party, to bring politics into it, which we probably will do a little bit more on, a little bit more politics coming up. But tell me about your encounters. I am curious to know how that went, because I'm not saying that Ed's been doing stunts, but did he do a stunt in Harrogate?
He was on tour with his band, Sir Ed Davey's bandwagon. But no, I have to, as a preamble, I must mention the fact that when I did Charm Magazine in the late 90s for 4 years, David Gedge of Wedding Present kindly wrote a monthly column for 3 years. So for a time I was quite close to David Gedge, well, not so much in recent years. And at one point he turned to me, and you know how busy I am now, but in the 90s when I was doing the Charm Magazine, where I was in Charm gigs twice a month, I was mega busy. And David Gedge was way more famous than me then, and way more famous than me now, and way more famous than me in 35 years' time. He turned to me one time and said, Graham, you should write about yourself. He said, your life is way more interesting than mine. You're always meeting people. And obviously I said, yes, you're entirely right, David. I am much more interesting than you. No, I didn't. I got all modest and denied the whole thing, like someone would do.
Dave Gedge was right.
I should have said, yes, you're right.
He was right.
But anyway, this week it's true. This week I was on Times Radio being interviewed about the election in Harrogate.
Exactly. 2 questions, 2 very quick answers. I thought you did very well with the posh boy whose name you couldn't remember.
I thought it was quality answers, though. Yeah. Quality answers. Yeah. On Wednesday night, I met the lead actor in Ken Loach's what looks like his final
Now, the
film, The Old
male
Oak.
lead actor or the
Thanks to
female lead
thanks
actor?
to Harrogate Film Society, because Harrogate Film Society screened The Old Oak in the Odeon in front of an audience of about 150, in conjunction with Sanctuary, which is a Harrogate charity that supports and encourages refugees living in the Harrogate district from Ukraine and Syria.
Yeah.
So since The Old Oak's about Syrian refugees in a ex-mining village in County Durham, Harrogate Film Society invited Dave Turner, the lead actor, to turn up. So
Graham, was it the?
And then
was it?
met Sir Ed Davey again at Harrogate College. And then I went to the yeah. Carry on.
So Sir Ed Davey turns up in Harrogate because of confidence.
Did you say something, Charles?
I'm just thinking. Sir Ed Davey comes to Harrogate because he can sniff like a shark. He can sniff blood and sense that the Liberal Democrats are likely to take back Harrogate for the first time in a long time.
It's partly that. He first turned up last year, though. I've met him 3 times in Harrogate in the last year. He's been there a lot because they've also realised that of all the seats held by Tories right now, especially in Yorkshire, that Harrogate's probably one of the Harrogate and Nisbet's probably one of the softer ones to aim for. So he's been putting great efforts, and he turned up with his battle bus outside Harrogate College because he was drawing attention to the importance of Harrogate College and its expansion plans, £22 million expansion plans. And he was then heading back down, I think, to Norfolk the same day. So it was a lot of mileage on these battle buses.
And I just had a chat about the longest journey without getting anywhere is that one to Norfolk. It takes forever.
Yeah. So I was interviewing him back for the Harrogate Advertiser. I was saying interview. Since I've talked to him so much, it was hardly required. So I simply said to him, when you started the first week of the election campaign by going down a water chute and pulling off all these stunts, I thought, what on earth is Sir Ed Davey doing? But then I noticed that it was just a way of drawing attention, because the big problem with Lib Dems in election campaigns is actually, does anybody know who they are?
I thought it was well judged. I thought the balance, of course, was then highlighting the life of his son, isn't it?
Exactly, yes. So he switched quite quickly from being almost a joke into being very, very serious and very personal.
I thought that was pretty astute politics doing that. I thought, and I'm not saying that was a cynical tactic, because it wasn't. It was just a very good balance. And I think as a leader, I actually think he's come out of this election pretty strongly as Ed Davey, and that's to his credit.
Well, yeah, for Lib Dem, who have the hardest task of the 3 main parties, he has. And he's almost as honest as Dave Turner. I mean, Dave Turner did the Q&A at the Odeon for Harrogate Film Society after it screened Ken Loach's The Old Oak. He was alarmingly honest. He was definitely the most honest film person Q&A I've ever seen in my entire life. And you and me have seen a lot of the Q&As at the Edinburgh Film Festival over the decades, because he's not really an actor, and he's also got no intention.
In the great Ken Loach tradition, isn't it?
He said he's got no intention of getting an equity card and trying to become a famous actor. He says it's not for him. He says, I managed to busk it in that film partly through the support of Ken himself, but I'm not made to be a proper professional big actor, even though people have already said, well, if you get an agent, you will get some roles. He said it's just not for me, because he's an ex-firefighter, an ex-firefighter union man. So it's just not him. So he didn't have to in any way massage what he was saying, because he literally hasn't got a career to protect. So it was hugely interesting, and I learned an awful lot about Ken Loach and how Ken makes films. It was just brilliant. It was up to the standards of the best events at the Edinburgh National Film Festival over the years. That's how good that event with the Old Oak and Dave Turner was.
That's really pleasing to hear, because I'm obviously I like hosting Q&As myself. I wish to do rather more than I do these days, but I think they're really interesting events, and I'm not bigging up myself for hosting them and that I can ask them interesting questions. But I think that's exactly why film societies exist, to take just beyond watching the film. Ideally, as this situation is, you have a really interesting guest there, good questions are asked, and you learn an awful lot more than just watching the film. That's why it's always beneficial. I mean, theatres have a good habit of doing Q&As afterwards. I mean, it's a regular feature at the Theatre Royal. It's a regular feature at Leeds Playhouse, and Leeds Grand has done like that likewise over the years. I think these are. I mean, I think it's an opportunity actually to respect also the level of knowledge amongst those who go to theatre, who appreciate that extra information. I think theatres, have a. I'm not saying I'm not saying for everybody it's compulsory to do that, but I just think I think those who haven't been to Q&As would actually, I would definitely confidently say that anyone would enjoy a Q&A, and if they haven't gone, I think they should look out for potential performances.
Yeah, the worst aspect of Q&As is when people just say, "What was it like to do it?" and it'll become sort of like a bit prosaic. And there's quite a lot of cliched questions get asked
there's a risk
over the years.
Okay,
so
I acknowledge the risk of that, Graham, but I think there are ways to steer those into being brief answers and to getting the more interesting ones there.
Well, anyway, there was no such problem with Dave Turner or Harrogate.
No.
It was absolutely superb.
Yeah,
but Ken's not going to make another film because he's not only 89 and ill. According to Dave, his hearing and eyesight's terrible now. So that doesn't sound to me very promising.
Doesn't sound an ideal scenario for trying to make a film, does it? To say the least.
No. Which is a shame because obviously he's a legend. And according to Dave, when he's at the Cannes Film Festival or at film events on the continent, he's like a hero at these events, and he gets mobbed by people who want his autograph.
Yeah.
Whereas in Britain, it isn't quite the same effect.
Although there are those who realise the significance and importance of his filmmaking, and why the bloody hell there aren't more filmmakers like that, challenging the status quo and trying to make a better world. I know sometimes you think that maybe he tends to go around the same hamster wheel a little bit often, but overall, I think his significance as a filmmaker in this country is right up there with the very best as being significant.
Well, I think it says something.
The way we should think about.
Charles, but I think it says something. He's the only working class, even though I'm not sure he's working class himself, he's the only working class filmmaker who's kept on making working class films.
Shane Meadows?
For 5-6 decades. No one else has. Nearly, but not for as long, not the same.
Not for as long yet, no.
Not very politically either. Occasionally a little bit of politics and a bit of social comment, but not always. And Mike Leigh occasionally has done that as well. Yeah. But Ken Loach is the only one who just stuck to his guns, just kept on doing those films. Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah, that's true. And so I mean, I think it's great to have such an event as that's been held in Harrogate. Now, Graham, I just want to throw the opportunity first of all for an interruption, and then I think if we may go on to a little bit of, I'm kind of throwing this subject to you in rather scattergun fashion about politics and the arts in the general election, but we'll go with an interruption first, if we may. What's been interrupting your life recently?
Well, to get back to Deershed Festival, last year I saw the call was coming on the main stage. I was right at the front, and it was without doubt one of the greatest live experiences of my entire life. And you know how many gigs I've seen, because the band led by Shabaka Hutchins was absolutely sensational. And it was like they were playing just for you. It was so intense. It didn't feel like a big gig. It felt like a very small gig. And they blew the stage away and blew my mind. Well, after that gig, it turns out that Shabaka has given up the sax altogether, even though it's his main instrument. And he's taken up jazz flute, or in fact, all ranges, all matters, all kinds of flutes from across the world. And he's released his first album on Impulse Records recently. And I love the potentials of the title. It's called Perceive Its Beauty, Acknowledge Its Grace. And before I got it, I thought, well, it's going to be a bit like Alice Coltrane or Pharoah Sanders. It's going to be a bit way out there and a bit sprawling and a bit slightly hippie jazz of the early 70s. But instead, it's like little gems and very intense. And there's almost as much minimalism involved as there is jazz. It's quite unexpected.
So how radical is it to switch an instrument like that in the way that he has?
Well, it's come back into fashion because Andre 3000 of Outkast, the famous rappers, released a jazz flute album last year. So jazz flute, having been in the wilderness for years, I mean, the last time a jazz flute was seen was an Anchorman with Will Ferrell. Oh. It's not been taken seriously.
I kept thinking, which is the film in which that instrument has been taken not too reverently?
It's been a figure of fun for quite a while, or it's been completely ignored. So it's quite radical to do that, and it's quite radical of Shabaka to actually opt for the flute. But it's such a great album. You're thinking like, well, good call.
I think you've got to give us the title of that album again, Graham, because it's just worth hearing again.
I love it. It's called Perceive Its Beauty, Acknowledge Its Grace.
Absolutely. So now, Graham, I was invited onto a different radio station today, YO1 Radio by David Dunning, to reflect on the arts in the general election. And I went onto the Campaign for the Arts website, and it was very revealing, really. Which party do you think has absolutely no mention whatsoever of the arts in its, here's the clue. They didn't even call it a manifesto, they call it Contract for the People. So which party is that, Graham?
We're not bringing up the NF word. We're not bringing up the F word.
We're bringing up the reform.
No, don't mention that. No.
So
we can't mention it.
So they do not mention the arts or creative industries at any point whatsoever. Nor do they offer any solutions to problems relating to funding crisis in higher education, aside from suggesting here's a great answer. Have you heard this one? What they're suggesting?
All right.
What is it? Cut 3-year degrees to 2-year degrees. So
that's genius. That will solve all the problems of education. Why didn't someone else think of that?
Cutting wasteful spending by 50%.
What does that even mean? Wasteful spending?
That's bound to include the arts. They'll just remove even more of the arts. Yeah. And they are proposing to abolish the BBC's funding model without any replacement suggested, which just suggests finishing having the BBC at all.
Yeah. Well,
and then weakening or scrapping of legal protections of diversity and equality, which of course would have a direct effect on the arts, which is already still gets somewhat criticised for needing further changing of a system of being perceived as a bit in unequal in opportunities in the arts and culture. Though I do think that actually that is something that is regularly being addressed by theatre companies. That is something that I do think is changing and improving. So there you go. That's clearly the party that really cares about the arts and almost about as much as the Tories.
Yeah, well, none of these parties really care about the arts. Traditionally, Labour spends more on the arts when in power than other parties do.
Right.
But no one puts the arts as top priority because the general public don't put the arts as top priority. But I would say that the governments and parties in recent history, or the last 200 years, who have least interest in the arts always tend out to be dictatorships. They are never interested in the arts.
Exactly. So the Green Party, Graham, how much extra per year do you think they would spend on the arts? This is the only party that has actually put it into the terms that I'd like to hear from as to how much they would actually spend extra on the arts. What do you think?
Yeah, but the Green Party is proposing to spend shed loads of money. And on top of that, the Green Party only has one MP. So
Graham,
it's like, well,
what are you saying? The Green Party is not going to win the general election, so it's completely irrelevant for them to show some rather pleasing aspect of understanding why the arts does matter. Do you know how much, anyway?
How much
it would be?
Tell me.
It would be, Graham, an extra $1 billion a year. Do you know what that's the equivalent of? It's basically the loss of what's been spent every year since 2010. So it only actually would take it back. It would just simply take it back to the level in 2010.
I thought the Green Party would be more generous than that, since they're playing with big figures because there's no chance of them actually being in government. Yeah. I assumed it'd be more than that, so that's quite disappointing, really.
Well, still, I think it's better than the other parties are suggesting. But as you say, you've pointed out they're probably going to have still not that many MPs. So
I'm not saying anything against them, by the way. I'm just saying that you have to be realistic.
And now, do you think any of the parties, Graham, whatsoever, are going to protect the right to go to the galleries of this world and museums for free? Do you think any of the parties are going to do that?
No, I wouldn't have thought so.
So one party is still proposing to do that. That's the Lib Dems. They are proposing that will still be the case.
I just think, the danger in the world.
The danger. Quiz this. Which is the only party, Graham, that would actually consider.
Yeah.
Graham, that's a good question. Do you think any party is interested in spending money and promoting the role of the arts in health and well-being? Which party might be interested in that?
Lib Dems.
Correct. So why aren't the others in that? Because if you look at improving
Charles, it's quite obvious. First of all, there's no votes. Yeah, there's no votes in the arts. We've had this discussion before. There's no votes in supporting the arts amongst the general public. And on top of that, Britain as a whole is in such a mess that there are so many priorities of things that really need to get addressed involving spending money that sadly, amongst all that, to devote instantly lots of money to the arts, just wouldn't go down well. Now, if you ever
But if
get
the,
a government, if you ever get a government in power that actually manages to grow the economy properly and
yeah,
invest decent sums of money in the public sector as a whole, at
yeah,
that point you might actually get more investment in the arts, and it might all improve. But this
okay,
it's a bit like after a war. The first thing you do after a war's finished is rebuild your
yeah.
bombed towns and cities. You don't spend loads and loads of money on doing a tour of the provincial theatres with a new play.
So the salad, you're saying the salad dressing is not worth it. I would say
No, I'm
this,
not saying
Graham.
that. I'm just saying that you have to
No,
be realistic.
I mean,
Yeah.
you know, maybe I'm being naive on this, but however, if one looks at the grassroots potential of it, which is what I want to look at, it's about education and where you try to revive the role of arts in education. Only 40, I think it's 47% of GCSE students were studying arts, and only 29% of A-level students were studying the arts. Now, the question is that by choice, or is that because it's not actually available in the way that it should be at schools? And if so, why is that the case? When actually one of the few industries that we're still good at is
I'm guessing a bit of both. Yeah.
manufacturing the arts, Graham, which we are still really
Yeah,
good
no,
at.
but the if the arts is in trouble, if there aren't lots of good jobs in the arts anymore, because the arts is in trouble because of the economy and lack of public investment. If the arts is in trouble and you are a bright, intelligent young student looking to
Yeah,
get a job after you've been to university, why on
yeah.
earth would you plump to be in the arts? The whole thing's a downward spiral. It isn't just the government picking on the arts, it's also that in a tough economy, in tough times, people get more practical. It's almost like America, where students are much more hard-headed than in Britain. Although I think students in Britain have become more hard-headed because 20 years ago, most students didn't have a job while they were studying. Now I imagine the percentage is pretty damn high. So in that environment where it's really tough to get on in life, even if you come from a reasonably affluent background, well, the arts then starts to feel like a luxury thing to do. So again, all these things relate to Britain having declined, both in its economy, its public sector, its health service, its services, its social care. The whole thing's one ball of decline, and you
But
have to address the whole situation before you can hope to make the arts better and to bring the arts back to its
if
right position.
there are lots of things that we're not good at anymore, or have been taken away from being good at because of costs, which are steel industry, etc., chocolate industry going abroad largely. If you're really good at something, why the hell do we not concentrate on that?
Well, Britain's been
Seriously,
shooting
Graham,
itself.
I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah,
I don't
Britain's been
understand it. We are
shooting.
really good at the arts, world
Britain has been
renowned at
shooting
the
itself
arts,
in the
Graham.
foot.
People don't
Britain has,
pour scorn on our arts. They think we're fantastic at the arts. So why the hell are we putting it at risk? I don't get it, Graham. I don't understand the
because
logic of this.
you've had 14 years of a government which looks on investment in the arts and encouraging the arts as some airy-fairy, irrelevant subject for
They're
them
quite
to
happy
look.
to take free tickets for Glyndebourne, Graham.
Well, yeah, no, because that's their life. They're happy to live their life. They just don't want everybody else to live their life. That's what it's about, really.
I mean, it's. I mean, I do come across as very naive. I come across as the jazz flute player at this point, I think, in my wishes. Um, I just think I just
Maybe
think
kazoo.
to give up on the arts. It would be another crass decision in this country. To deny what we're really good at is I find that a bizarre philosophy. I know it's you could say it about the fishing industry. You could say it about some. You could say it obviously about the way that things like jumpers no longer being made in this country. I mean, I get that we can romanticize, and then of course the new consequent world of AI coming in as well. When I used to understand AI being the A1 road from Yorkshire to London or whatever. So, Graham, are you basically saying that I'm just a romanticist and I should just go off and live a life in a cave on my own and grow a long beard and just
No, no, you're entirely right. And what your great worry is that you're going to have a list that consists of fishermen, miners, steelworkers, and playwrights. And the
yeah,
playwrights are joining a long list of like
yeah, yeah.
professions in Britain. I can see the fear, and I totally back your idea that we should invest more in the arts, have more of the arts in schools and education. I totally agree that it's a great sector for Britain internationally and should be supported. I'm just trying to explain why it hasn't been supported recently and why it's unlikely to become top of the agenda until a better government comes along that manages to turn the country around.
In the meantime, Graham, what you're suggesting is that we're more likely to become a stronger dictatorship, no matter who's in charge.
No, I have not, because I'd be very many MPs who believe in that sort of thing who get elected.
Okay, well, that's the first positive point that you've made in the last 5 minutes.
And not really. I'm just realistic. I don't want to like pretend something's going to happen when
is there any point doing this
podcast?
Is there any point doing this podcast?
Well, I think we should get public investment. I think to be using in a small car is well deserving of some.
Do we need an even smaller car?
Why don't we have a big car? Why don't we have 2 huge egos in a gigantic car? Because we've suddenly been subsidised or sponsored.
Well, I'm glad to have brought this topic up because I mean, it's interesting. Apart from Brexit, I think the arts has been the least discussed thing in any general election coverage. I think a single question at any of the debates has come up discussing the arts.
I'm a historian. Yeah. But I'm a historian. Like, I did politics minister at Edinburgh a long time ago, but I always kept my interest up. And the reason that is the case is partly that's always the case, but it's also that most general elections is probably only 3 or 4 big topics need to be addressed.
Yeah.
Things have gone so wrong. There's probably about 30, 40 important things that need to be addressed. So that just squeezes the arts out of the debate because
even more so.
It's almost like, as I've said before, it's like Britain's been to war. It's had a bit of a pummeling.
Yeah.
The war's ended and we're now having to rebuild from scratch. Yeah. It's that sort of feeling.
Well, that's put me in my place and made me feel about as miserable as I could today. Until I watch England playing football, or not playing football tomorrow night. Graham, I think it's time for a further interruption.
Well, I'm not miserable.
No, I mean, you just knew that Scotland weren't going to get anywhere anyway.
Oh, yeah, on a positive note, I think we've got Pete Oxley, the founding member of Hedgera. Yeah, I'm not talking Scotland. Britain's greatest tribute band to Joni Mitchell songs of the 70s. Although they're not really a tribute band, they're much better than that. They don't pretend to dress like Joni Mitchell or whatever.
Exactly.
But
I don't think Pete's ever knowingly dressed like Joni Mitchell.
Now that we know about it. Well, I think he's coming on the show next Sunday to talk about how he formed the band, what he's thinking on Joni Mitchell's great work in the 1970s. So that'll be good.
Well, we very much look forward to that. That will be splendid. Graham, any last topic for this evening? We've got a few minutes spare.
Oh yeah, R.E.M. Vinyl Sessions, which raises money for the NHS charity at Harrogate, is back a week on Wednesday. I think it's July.
Where will it be, Graham? Where will it be?
Starling Bar in Harrogate. And the classic album that I'll be talking about this time will be R.E.M's Autobike for the People.
Now, why have you chosen that particular album? Great choice, by the way, but why that one out of their back catalogue, which is going further and further? Well, it could have been
Out of Time. Now. It was a toss between Out of Time and Autobike for the People. And we pick albums that tend to have a chance of getting a decent-sized audience. So we figure between that and Out of Time, that'd be the one. But I'm going to say that R.E.M. are the strangest band ever to be the biggest band on the planet. And I don't mean strange as in super weird. They're just a bit odd.
Yes.
They were the quietly oddest band ever to be huge around the world. And I think, in retrospect, that they connected with a mass public audience almost by accident in a way that no other huge band did. Most other huge bands were obviously going to be big. R.E.M. weren't made to be big. Even when they became a bit more commercial when they signed to Warner Brothers, they weren't made to be big. They're a quietly odd band, but in an unthreatening way.
I remember writing in a review that when I was watching them at, I think it was Huddersfield that I saw them, with an entire crowd, packed crowd singing "That's Me" in the corner, losing my religion. And the irony of an entire stadium saying "That's me" in the corner, when in fact they were absolutely everywhere, not just the 4 corners of the football ground, but everywhere, singing that song. And your point, and I remember I went with a friend of mine from the York Press who said, "Charles, what a ridiculous point to make." But no, I'm standing by it, and your point is absolutely true. I think they are the strangest of bands to be successful.
But all
Why
nice
then?
guys.
So why did we connect? Why did so many people connect with them?
I think partly because a few of the songs were genuine crowd pleasers.
Yes.
Although they weren't designed to be so usually. No. But on top of that, I think the thing about R.E.M., the mystery of R.E.M. means there's a lot below the surface, and people feel the pull of R.E.M. from below what they hear. There's something below the surface that people want to connect with that R.E.M. themselves don't articulate fully, and that's what
he's notorious for writing difficult to understand lyrics and obscure lyrics that can be interpreted in many different ways, which has actually been one of the joys of trying to work out what the hell he was singing about.
It's almost like he writes about important things in code, which again is part of the enigma and part of the appeal.
Enigma, that's exactly it. Mystery. And actually, I mean, that's continued because, of course, I mean, sightings are pretty rare, really, of Michael Stipe. I mean, whether we'll ever see a full album in any form at all from him again, I can't ever expect to see R.E.M. playing again. You know, whether he'll do more than he's done in recent years, growing his beard and taking photographs, I don't know.
Well, funny you say that, Charles, because they actually reformed for one song recently in America.
One song? What was that song?
I can't remember. It might be Lose My Religion. I can't remember. And they met up for interviews as well because they were getting some Songwriters Award. So the four of them, including Bill Berry, were in the same room at the same time. Which was, I saw the footage and it was quite moving, really.
Absolutely. Well, Graham, thank you for bringing that up. And by the way, just say again the where you're going to be doing this album vinyl sessions.
Starling Independent Bar and Kitchen in Harrogate. I think it's Wednesday, July the 3rd, and it's at 7:30 p.m. And you get the whole album, and you get me waffling on a pretentious fashion about R.E.M.
You know, that's just made it absolutely automatic for as many people as possible to go and see that. That's great. So, Graham, good night, and thanks very much for putting me right about politics. I feel as depressed as I've ever felt about any upcoming general election.
You've been listening to the podcast Two Big Egos in a Small Car. Your hosts were Graham Chalmers and Charles Hutchinson. This was a Baltic sub-production.